Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Compelling Conversations podcast. Today, I'm joined by my friend Patita-Pavana. Patita-Pavana, thanks so much for being here, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're like the first Hare Krishna monk I ever met, and it's wild that we've kept in touch for as long as we have. Could you please begin by explaining what your name means?
Yeah, Patita, actually, it's a compound word, Patita-Pavana. Patita means the most fallen. Pavana means uplifter or purifier. And Das, it means the servant. So when it's all combined together, it means I'm the servant of those who uplift or those who purify the most fallen, conditioned souls.
Yeah, that's a really cool meaning.
Yeah,
When you shared it with me, I was like, wow.
it's a name within our tradition. It's a name of God, and it's also a name of those who serve his mission.
Interesting. Yeah. I also wanted to ask about like the necklaces. Like if I'm not mistaken, they're called malas. Is that right?
Yeah, there's different types.
Yeah.
So
Is there like
like
a meaning behind the one you're wearing?
yeah, the ones we have, I know in other traditions it's called holy basil. I know like the Orthodoxy traditions, in Christianity they use holy basil. It's called Tulsi, actually. There's
Yeah.
Tulsi is a personality. She's very in intricate in the workings of our of the devotional service. Actually, her name is Bhakti Devi, and we practice Bhakti yoga. Bhakti means loving devotional service, and that's like the rough English translation. And she's the one who predominates over the pastimes of the Lord and actually arranges for various personalities to be engaged in those pastimes and how they will, interact with the Lord. And she arranges the settings, the way that different um, personalities will be kind of displaying. It's like basically, unless this question, this could go very deep or intricate, but it could be on a lower, a more simple level. Um, Tulsi, we wear it because it actually protects us. So if one were to leave the body when they're wearing Tulsi, then they're protected from any inauspiciousness, meaning go into any lower birth. And
Interesting.
yeah, but
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I don't want to go too far into the other realm. It might be because there's a lot to do, a lot to explain in terms of details.
Yeah, no, it's all good, but thanks for sharing that. That is interesting. Another thing I wanted to talk about, dude, like with the current state of the world, like what's been the sad things happening in Palestine. I know that in the Hindu tradition, there's cycles of time,
Mm,
and we're said to be in the Kali Yuga right now. Could you
mm.
please explain what the Kali Yuga is, how we entered it, and how it ends?
Wow, wonderful question. Yeah, it's just like everything in this world is cycling. You see it in the seasons. We have summer, spring, summer, fall, and winter. Similarly, the time is cycling in the same way in a larger scale. In terms of this, these cycles are happening on the Earth planet, and basically, Kali Yuga began about a little over 5,000 years ago. Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago and manifested his pastimes, and that's when he spoke the Bhagavad Gita. And after his disappearance was when Kali Yuga was initiated. That he kind of wrapped up his pastimes, and that was the end of the Dwapara Yuga. And basically, Kali Yuga is symptomized by hypocrisy, quarrel. Um, the qualities of religiousness are degraded by about 75%. The only quality that remains within Kali Yuga is that there's still truthfulness. And truthfulness, not in terms of that people are going to tell the truth, but that the absolute truth or the path to pure love of God is still available in the world. So, because that is still um, accessible, therefore, the quality or the leg of religion known as truthfulness is still prominent and alive. And once that's um, removed, then that's actually scheduled for another 400, about 20 something thousand years. That's the end of the age of Kali. And once that happens, Krishna will manifest again. He says he'll come in the form of Kalki. Kalki is Krishna who rides a white horse. He carries a double-edged sword, and he cuts down those persons who act as kings in this world, trying to enjoy and control. And that, in the Bible, the similar explanation of God coming again, white horse, sword, cutting down demons. So this is described that it won't happen for another 420 something thousand years. So until then, we have a period of the qualities of righteousness, um, greed, envy, lust, pride, all these different things. These will increase, but also, according to our philosophy, Lord Chaitanya, he appeared 500 years ago, and his purpose was to inaugurate what's known as the Yuga Dharma. So within each age, there's also a form of religion, a form of dharma, which one can attain perfection very easily. It's like a doctor prescribes a certain medicine at a certain time. So in this age, the prescription for being released from the influence of the material energy is to chant the holy names of God. And whether one chants the names within, another tradition, or etc., that's the detail. But the essence is that we call on the name of God and that we actually awaken pure love of God through that process and through devotional service.
Interesting. I'm glad you brought up the Kalki because that was another thing that I wanted to discuss with you. In the Abrahamic traditions, there's this idea of a Messiah coming. The Muslims and Christians believe it's Christ. Would you consider the Kalki like a Messiah, or what is a more appropriate title for him?
Kalki would be, we say God, actually in the Vedas, he appears himself in various times, and those are all described. Actually, it's not that because many people will just claim to be God, but they're symptoms one can understand by the qualities. And also it's within scripture that at this time he'll be born in this he'll appear in this family. These will be the names of his parents. This will be the location which will take place, and this is what he'll do. So that's
Interesting.
described as we have that same description of Lord Buddha, um, and Lord Chaitanya, who appeared 500 years ago. We have that same description of him. So
Are you at all familiar with if the Kalki also exists in the Buddhist tradition?
um, if he does, they wouldn't consider him God because at least in the Orthodox sense, I don't know what's happened as time's gone on, but Buddhism is traditionally atheistic, meaning they don't have a conception or faith in a supreme being, but their ultimate purpose, their ultimate goal of their practice is nirvana. Nir meaning without, vana meaning the forest, or the forest of this material world. Therefore, they want nothing, zero, void. So in that conception, there's no source, there's no one to return to. It's just they're entering into a void of nothing. I wouldn't even know how to describe it, but nirvana.
Just on the side, have you ever been a fan of Nirvana, the band?
um, Before coming to Krishna consciousness, I'd listened, but not in like a way that I knew many details. I didn't. I just knew I
Interesting.
knew Kurt Cobain. I knew he suffered immensely, and yeah,
Yeah,
symptom of
and
the mentalities that people have.
yeah, I just always think that's interesting what Nirvana means, freedom from
Mhm.
and you said right now without the forest, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Vana is like a forest, and near means without,
Oh, interesting.
because it's actually this material world is described as the forest of like um, material illusion. It's a place where we get lost.
Yeah. Where do we get found?
Well, that would be the spiritual platform, self-realization. Because here we don't know who we are. We think like one comes into this world and they're born into a family and they come out, they don't have anything, they don't know anything. And everybody around them who, in a similar way, came into this world not having anything, not knowing anything, is then calling them names, saying that they're this, saying that they're that, raising them in an atmosphere of ignorance of their true identity. And therefore, our entire life is based on a foundation which is not, it's not founded on truth. It's not founded on um, the reality of our identity. Because our identity is based on I'm this body. Okay, I'm born in, say for myself, I'm born in Indiana. Okay, or I'm born in Kentucky, and this is my father, and he's there, he's over there now, and okay, this is my mom and my brother and my sister, and I'm kind of attracted to these kinds of foods and these colors and these things. I like those things. Those are my favorites, and I like this type of music, et cetera, et cetera. And we just kind of pile on various likes and dislikes and designations onto our identity, but we don't know who it is that's liking and disliking. So we're just going through this world of names and forms and accepting and rejecting what we do and don't like, but we don't know who we are. And therefore, people suffer immensely because their activities, their purpose of their life is not based on reality. It's based on a relative reality. It's temporary, it's changing. But until one knows fully and without doubt who they are and who is God and what we're meant to do in this world, then there will always be a lacking in the heart. There will always be a desire for more or something else. We can work and work and work to a certain point, thinking that all these things will help us, but ultimately the satisfaction will never fully be there. And at the end, it will be symptomatic by fear. We have fear of death. We have fear of what's going to happen next, or a feeling of wishing to go back and do something else and do something differently. We won't be fully satisfied because we won't know where we're going next. We have to leave everything and say goodbye to everything and everyone all at the same time. But if we don't know who we are and what we're doing or where we're going, then that's quite a fearful situation. And throughout life, one who doesn't have that knowledge, then the only thing they're looking forward to ultimately is death, and they don't know of anything higher. And that's quite a bewildering for us to be in. It's quite fearful. And yeah.
All right, that was a really nice monologue. I liked
So,
that. Yeah.
some points.
This is making me think of something. One time I asked you something that I was curious about was why is it, that with the Hare Krishna tradition, it's so Indic centric. It's so central to India only. Like this tradition isn't really, it's not out there in the rest of the world. And you told me something like it's because in India, this is the only place where this tradition has been preserved. That you guys believe that it was all around the world, but
Hmm.
it's only been preserved in India, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. And
yeah.
if that's the case, I'm curious, like, how did this happen? Is that part of the Kali Yuga, or
Um, yeah, as time goes on, things fractured. Um, like I mentioned, in the Vedas themselves, it describes that the world was run by one emperor many times, that the Earth planet was run by an emperor who designated various countries and regions out to kings who maintained the smaller um, civil like settlements and kingdoms. And as for all the details in terms of the history, I wouldn't be able to go into that. But there are descriptions of these other locations, these other places within the world, within the Vedic texts, which are describing activities that were happening millions of years ago. And even if you can look into like in the Amazon rainforest, there's still tribes. They have forms of broken Sanskrit, their language, or names of rivers in various places are still contain they still Sanskrit names. And I wouldn't know how to fully connect all of these things just because it's not my realm of research, but according to the scriptures themselves and what I've heard from some of my authorities, these are a few things. Maybe, if you have further questions, I can try to answer them. At this time, I may not be able to give a full answer for all of those things.
That's fine. The reason I brought that up was because I was just curious about if that had any connection with the Kali Yuga. If that was
Yes,
about it.
yeah. It definitely, like I mentioned, fracturing. So hypocrisy, quarrel, things break down, and it because of that, people stop following the principles of religion. Basically, India, it's the culture of India was Vedic culture. Now it's much more degraded, and it is very wonderful, very deeply rich spiritual culture. And for a long time, they've also been suppressed and dominated over by the British Empire. Not until Gandhi came that they started to come out of that. Um, but yeah, the principles of religion as they stopped being followed. People started deviating from religious culture. It kind of degraded. It fell into different realms, and
Yeah.
and basically India is a place where there's still a lot of the culture was maintained, but even in other parts of the world, it may have been different in terms of how they expressed the culture. Because
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because it's made me think, like, for example, would you have any idea if figures like Zeus or Poseidon are just distorted versions of the Hindu pantheon?
I've heard of that. I don't myself. I wouldn't be able to speak on it like in any authoritative way, just
Yeah,
because it's not been my realm of research. But I can probably find some resources and send them your way. Um,
interesting.
I've
Yeah,
definitely heard that that's been the case, and
yeah, this is a curiosity I've had. But I also wanted to go back to the Kalki for a second because the reason I asked about him perhaps existing in the Buddhist tradition was I remember reading somewhere that he's born in Shambhala. I don't know if that's true. Are you aware of that at all?
Shambhala. No, I'm
The
not sure.
lost Buddhist city.
Um, I do have a book that will says where he's going to take or where he's going to appear and who his parents will be at that time,
Interesting.
but I don't know. I don't have it right off the top of my mind.
Yeah, it's all good. That's just something I was curious about. Another thing I was curious about was like in the Abrahamic tradition, there's like this idea of a judgment day, and then everybody gets judged based on like whatever they've done and they go to heaven or hell. Does
Mhm.
that tradition exist in the Hare Krishna realm, like Krishna presiding as a judge over people and there being a judgment day?
Well, um, not in the same sense, and also kind of in relation to that, Krishna himself, he's he doesn't really need to engage so much in the intricacies of this world. Krishna is just playing. He just has fun. He just exchanges loving relationships with those who are pure devotees of his. So he actually in Krishna he expands in multiple forms. So he has expansions which take care of the various other aspects of the spiritual and material worlds, and he just enjoys. And as for a judgment day, judgment comes at the day of death, and every birth that we take, that we're dying and taking birth, and we're being judged for each lifetime. Everything that we're doing, we're taking another birth, and we're facing the reactions of those activities, good and bad, pious
Is
or
there
evil.
ever a permanence, like you permanently remain, say, in hell or heaven in your tradition?
No, there's no eternal hell. One can remain in this material world perpetually, which is considered to be an eternal hell. If you want to look at it like that, but there's still always the opportunity to get out. But it's our desire. Do we want
And
it?
it's making me think of another thing. Is there an idea of an apocalypse in the tradition? Say, like at the end of the Kali Yuga, where it's like everything ends, or is it continue to be a cycle like Ragnarok?
It's a cycle. So end of Kali Yuga, Kalki appears. At that time, um, persons who are degraded in heart, they're completely overrunning everything. The environment is completely diminished or just decimated. Earth no longer will grow anything. That people are turning, they can only eat flesh and various other like things that they can find. Trees and shrubs and everything are very small. Um, cloud sky is always dark or cloudy. Various things. Um, it's a dark time. But once Kolki appears, he will remove the influences of the world who are not pious, those persons who are still demonic in heart, and the persons who are left are those who are still devotees or God conscious, and they will continue to regenerate the world, um, and they'll do it in a God conscious way. And then that cycle, that begins the Satya Yuga. The Satya Yuga is characterized by longevity, peacefulness, equanimity, God consciousness, righteousness, etc. And it's very peaceful. And the earth itself, just like our body, if you were to cut your hand and you watch it and you just don't do anything, if you could sit there and you can watch it long enough, it would heal itself. And even if you don't watch it, it's going to heal itself. Similarly, the earth is just like that. If we were just to let it be and stop messing with it, and we were to live in a natural, harmonious way, then it would heal itself. It's our qualities of trying to exploit and dominate which are causing the difficulties. And so as soon as those influences are removed at the end of Kali Yuga, then things will start to clear out. Satya Yuga, then it'll again because of the qualities of this world, which are forgetfulness, um, and that influence will continue. Kali Yuga will come again, and then the end of that cycle.
Interesting. What is the painting behind you? It looks really fascinating.
That's Shukadev. His name is Shukadev Goswami. He's at the on the top, sitting in the chair. Under him is Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj means great king, Maha, great, Raja, king. And around him are an assembly of the greatest sages and saintly persons within the universe, actually. Various persons came because what they're discussing is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is here on the top shelf. Um, if you look on this one, on the far left section, the top shelf, and the next couple books underneath it. It's an 18-volume book, which Srimad Bhagavatam means the beautiful science of Bhagavan or God. Bhagavan means the supreme personality of Godhead, meaning he possesses all opulence, name, fame, or strength, renunciation, knowledge, etc. And then these are all qualities of a person, and God contains those qualities in the highest degree. And Srimad Bhagavatam is a discussion between Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadev Goswami. Um, Shukadev Goswami, he was 16 years old, fully self-realized being. He came into this world. Basically, he only came for the purpose of speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. And he didn't have any identification with this world. And he actually, a little further back, Maharaj Parikshit was cursed. He was touring his kingdom. He was actually an emperor of the world, and one of the last righteous emperors who was still maintaining all the principles of religion. And as he was touring, the influence of Kali was beginning, and the symptom of that, there was a saint. He approached a hermitage of a saintly person, and this person was in meditation. And Maharaj Parikshit, because he was the emperor, when he appears to someone's home, that person should, whatever they're doing, they should stop and, greet him and welcome him and give him, at least offer some water or a place to sit at a minimum. And this person, he was just absorbed in his meditation. He didn't break it. And Maharaj Parikshit put a dead snake on him. And then this person's son, who was also of a saintly character and that's known as a Brahmana. And at that time, The sages, they had something called brahmatejas, or a potency. Basically, when they would speak something, it would come true, and that's because there was purity still. And this boy, he also had potency, but he was influenced still by this age, and he cursed the king to die in 7 days. The king could have refuted it, but he accepted it and decided that he was going to renounce his kingdom. And he went to this assembly of sages and started to inquire what should he do with his time. He has 7 days to live. What's the perfection of our life? What should we do to perfect this human form of life? And nobody could come to a conclusive answer. They had various presentations that one should do, but when Shukadev Goswami appeared, he walked into the assembly, and everybody recognized him to be the one who was qualified to answer these questions. So what happened was Shukadev Goswami sat down. Maharaj Parikshit was inquiring from him, and for 7 days they just continuously discussed the perfection of human life, pure love of God, the activities and qualities of those who have pure love of God, various instances in history, which persons attained that perfection or exemplified those qualities, and culminating at the highest point of Srimad Bhagavatam in the revelation of who is Krishna and what does he do in the spiritual world. So this was given in the 10th canto, and then wraps it up with further analytical, what's known as Sankhya philosophy, which is analytical knowledge of matter and spirit, and how one can be free from the influence of the material energy and be fully fixed on the spiritual platform. It says by reading this book, by the time you reach the 9th canto or the 10th canto, one would be fully God realized soul, so that way they can enter into the spiritual activities of Krishna. And so then he spoke that for 7 days. That's where also Kalki and all these different form incarnations of God who come are described. And then after the days are over, Maharaj Parikshit says, no, Shukadev Goswami told him, he said, now give up this animalistic conception that you're going to die, because the soul doesn't die, the body dies. We're not the body at all. We have nothing to do with the body. We're simply watching it. And then Maharaj Parikshit said he fully understands, he's fully free of the contamination of this world and this identification. So Shukadev Goswami got up and he walked away. And then Srimad Bhagavatam concluded with some glorifications and a few other things.
Interesting. Did the Maharaja actually die though in the end?
Yeah, he left his body.
Wow. That's an interesting story, especially since we were talking about the Kali Yuga, and this happens to be something that precedes that. That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
And it's really far. It's a beautiful book. And at the end, it's describing the kings of this age, and it's describing, or the kings of previous ages, because the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is histories of mainly great kings and sages. And it's describing the timeline from the beginning of creation throughout creation. It's not exactly linear, but it's describing key historical moments and activities of the pure devotees of God. And that at the end, it's describing various lineages, and it actually works its way all the way down to what's contained within our current line of history, Chandragupta or Alexander the Great. I think that's the final age that it mentions, and then describes as Kali Yuga, symptoms of what happened to.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's an interesting story. Thanks for sharing that. Is there a lesson from that you personally resonate with?
Um,
There must be a reason you have
the
it.
entirety of the
Up with
Srimad
it.
Bhagavatam, it's just highlighting over and over again through every circumstance that the only thing which will stand is love of God, pure love of God. That everything else, it's going to fall away, and nothing else will actually help us. Nothing else is going to save us. No amount of adjustment on this material level, on this material platform, no arrangement of society, no government, nobody is going to help us. But the only thing that will actually help us is if we love and surrender to God purely.
Yeah, I
And
really like that.
that's
That's a
that's
good
the
point.
in the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam is describing how to do that, how one can actually attain that stage by hearing from persons who have done it.
At the end of the day, we're all human beings, and it's difficult sometimes to be that way. Do you face those difficulties as well? And if you do, like what helps you kind of recalibrate and get focused in that zone of just focusing on the love of God?
Mm. Yeah, everybody has a conditioned nature, or at least those who are still conditioned. But it's not that we are to take the position of victims, because as soon as we victimize ourselves, we take the power. We don't allow ourselves to have the power to actually um, take the steps necessary. What we have in our control is where we put our attention and what our intention is. Nothing else we control. And if we're putting our attention and our intention in material things and sense gratification, etc., um, and we find that we can't stop doing that, then it's our responsibility to make an arrangement in our life in which we can stop doing that by putting ourselves in association with persons who are acting purely, by putting ourselves in an atmosphere in which is conducive to God realization, to self-realization. Because if we place ourselves in an atmosphere which is causing our degradation, then we're only causing violence to ourselves and to other people. So yes, we have our nature, but we also have our responsibility to mold our life in such a way that we remember God, that we have to do the best we can with what facilities we have and give ourselves whatever, you know, position we need in order to utilize our full effort.
Yeah,
Does
that's
that make
beautiful. I like
sense?
that.
Yeah, we in a sense we have to hope against hope because we are quite fallen and we're in a quite difficult age,
What do you
but we
mean
have
by that? We have
to
to hope against hope.
basically our attaining pure love of God is like when we hear, if we actually were to hear from great persons who are pure in heart, it's like a hopeless endeavor, but still we have hope on the mercy of the Lord and we continue forward. And even if we fall down, we just continue forward, moving, taking everything that happens to us as, if something bad happens to us, that's a reaction to my own sinful activities. And I'm going to keep moving forward and still glorify the Lord. And by doing that, one is putting themselves in the position to receive the full mercy of the Lord.
Could you explain the that statement again? Hope against hope. I'm not sure I fully grasp
Yeah.
it.
So basically, the situation is that we are conditioned by the material energy, and it's pretty much a hopeless endeavor to come to pure love of God from our position. But still, we have hope and faith that we can do it, and we push in that way. We give everything we can in that way.
Okay.
By our strength, we can't do it, but still, I'm going to keep trying.
I see. I
And that
see.
we don't ever succumb to hopelessness in the sense that we give up all efforts and think, I'm so fallen in this world. I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna sin further because I can't do anything else. I'm hopeless. And they're like that. Okay, yeah, but you're proving yourself to be unqualified or not willing. Not you're actually it's proving ourselves to be unwilling to accept the mercy of the Lord. That the Lord can actually uplift even someone as fallen as myself.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Patita-Pavana, with us. We're coming to a close. This has been a
Mhm.
cool conversation. I'm curious. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say, you didn't get a chance to? Something on your mind that you wanted to express?
Um, I don't, nothing like really pressing. I kind of sometimes we get inspiration to read from that book and read like an excerpt from like you're discussing the Kali Yuga so much to read the symptoms of Kali Yuga. Um, I don't know if 3 minutes is quite enough time to do that. Um, yeah,
Yeah. I guess like being that this is the Kali Yuga, you have a message of hope to people that are listening.
Yeah, actually, there's let me see here. Okay, there's a section at the end where I was describing the here it is. It says this verse here. This is in the 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's basically 12th canto, third chapter, 51st verse. It says, "My dear king, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults," meaning that everywhere we look, we can find some fault. There can be something that we can point out and be negative about, or there's some fault in ourselves, etc. It's an ocean of faults. We're completely permeated by faults. He said, still, or there is still one good quality about this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, or even any name of God which one is inclined to in their tradition, one can become free from material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. So, calling on the name of God is that message of hope. And by doing it, it's a live wire, meaning as soon as you start doing it sincerely and calling in the mood of a child, calling out for its parents, then that it will affect. You'll feel the effect. You'll notice it. It's very potent. Because hallowed be thy name, they say. The name of the Lord is holy. It's not a material thing. It's not like a normal sound vibration. You can chant Coca-Cola all day long and you'll never get satisfied. You'll never feel like you get Coca-Cola. But you chant the name of God and you've got God on your tongue, you've got God in your heart. And he will reveal himself according to the sincerity and the endeavor, not in basically the sincerity, the quality of one's calling. As soon as one's calling without offense or without any ulterior motive other than just to love the Lord, and he'll reveal himself to that degree.
That's a cool closing thought, man. Thanks for sharing that. But yeah, it's been awesome talking to you, Patita-Pavana. I suppose until next time, eh?
Yeah, Krishna, thank you for having me.
For sure.